Cascading! He goes! Geiger driving and finishing with the one-handed jam.
All right, welcome in to the second episode of the EWC basketball podcast. Today I have a special guest, Connor Voelker, 2020 graduate of Kiel High School, and he's currently attending school and playing basketball at St. Norbert College. How's it going today, Connor?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
No, it's always good. Just ready for another episode. Got some good feedback on our first podcast, so I said, well, what the heck? Let's keep doing these as long as people want to come talk, and we'll just keep churning away and producing them. So first, I just wanted to ask you, when you looked at colleges, what stood out about St. Norbert, and why did you decide to go there?
Really, I thought it just kind of fit how I wanted to play. I wasn't, uber talented, but I think I play really hard. I think I'm going to benefit from the style of basketball that we play here. So, that was kind of the big thing basketball wise, but academically, that's kind of where I looked first, and it was a perfect fit in terms of the connections. And they always say it's not about what it's about who and that was the big thing at St. Norbert. So it was a combination of just some really good people, and then obviously fitting in with kind of the style of play that St. Norbert plays.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure how many practices or meetings you guys have had already, but what's your first impression of Coach Gresh, and how is he doing, and how do you like him?
Oh, I love him. I think that something that he's, a lot of people regarded him as one of the best coaches in Division III, and you can see it just the way we practice, how we do things. It's not only what we do in terms of the X's and O's that kind of separates us, but I think he truly cares about his players, as individuals, which really is something that, means a lot to me, and not only him, but the whole coaching staff. I mean, it's every day before practice, checking in how a class is going, everything like that. So, it's more about how the person's doing. And obviously, talk about it a lot, is you get the person to believe in you, and, it's really easy to coach him, and he does such a great job of that.
Yeah, right on. All right, one final question about St. Norbert. Nolan Byrne, he was a player of the year in 2017 in the EWC, graduate of New Holstein High School in 2017. He's a senior forward on your squad. And would you call him your leader of that squad? He's been there 4 years. And what have you learned, or what's it like playing with him after you've watched him play at New Holstein, when you were in middle school or as you grew up?
Yeah, I think he's as advertised. He's, he'd get in practice and he'd just dominate for a little bit. So, he's somebody that, obviously you see him growing up in the EWC and how good he is. And, being able to see that firsthand this year was really awesome for me, just seeing kind of how hard he works, stuff like that. Just, obviously he's laid out a pretty good foundation of what it takes to be successful, not only in basketball, but in life. And I think I've learned a lot from him in all aspects of my life.
Now we're going to shift gears. We're going to talk about some underappreciated, some underrated players. So, Connor, who are some guys that catch your eye that might be underappreciated or underrated?
Well, I know you and I both kind of see this one. The number one, I think, you can't have, obviously Roncalli's got the player of the year and Luke Pouts, but I think that, that team is really completed by Tyler Bonin. He's the best guard on the best team in the conference, and he can do a little bit of everything. He has great quickness. He's shown an ability to shoot it at times, but then again, he's that typical Roncalli guard that, is gonna not a lot of times is he gonna get that number one defensive assignment, just because there's some other guys that, that's more their role. But he is just a great defender, and I think he's that make it or break it piece on that Roncalli team, who really kind of who had a bad draw in that second half, or in the conference or in the regional race, with drawing Lords and Sheboygan Lutheran. But I think they still have, still think you favorite them. They've beat Lords already, and I think that you can never really count out Coach Garceau and Roncalli.
Yeah, I agree there. Like, coming into the year, we were kind of looking, and I looked at Roncalli. They were picked first to win by Mark Miller, and I had them picked in the top 4. I really didn't know how it would shake out, so I really didn't want to put in a ranking that I could be held accountable to just because I didn't know. And you knew Luke Pouts was coming back, but with Bryce Pouts, Austin Kratz, Alex Orth, Connor Jacoby leaving, you really didn't know, like, okay, well, who's the other guys that are going to step up? And Tyler Bonin, like, he's really stepped up. He's been one of my favorite players to watch this year. He really dominated the game that I saw him in person the second time at Roncalli. And yeah, like you said, he's your typical Roncalli player. He's going to get after you. He can hit the three. He had 3 triples, I believe, last night and 21 points in that game against New Holstein. And he's a big reason why they kind of ran away with the game at the end. All right. So,
Yeah, sure.
So who else do you got? Any other guys?
Well, I think this one is kind of I don't want to say not necessarily underrated. I think he's kind of underappreciated in kind of what he's done for his team. And that's Lucas Halbach. Chilton, I mean, you and I both kind of talked about this before of just how, nobody expected them to do anything in the conference this year. And he's been a star on that team who, has won 4 games in the conference. And, I think that if he's on a better team, I think he'd be getting more conversation in that, unanimous first team all conference. I still think he has a decent shot at getting first team all conference, but, I think he'd be a lock if, he's got some more talent around him that can really complement him. But, he has a great 3-point shot. He's got great size, and, he really uses that, especially with his anticipation to get, rebounds. And, they have obviously surprised some teams, and he's been a big part of that.
Yeah, I agree. On the offensive end, they run through him. They're not looking to spread. They're looking to get him the ball. And the thing I noticed about him, not sure how good he was in the game last night. Didn't really watch it too close. But the thing that stuck out when he played brilliant, he's really good around the basket. He can really finish. He plays through contact, gets people up in the air and finishes. Like he's not like other guys who just, they get the ball down there. They know it's going up. With him, he's always in control, great footwork, and he's cash money from 3 feet.
Yeah.
And on the defensive end, just talking more about Chilton, I think they've really thrown a lot of teams off with their 2-3. And he's been a great part in that rim protector inside, getting steals, long arms, big body. He's really stood out, and I agree with you. If he would be on a better team, I think yeah, he does have a better shot, but I think he's right on the bubble right now in these last couple games. Yeah. I think he easily could make a case why he deserves to be on the first team. All right, the next guy I think on both of our list is Cole Hovey. When you hear Val, there's you just assume, Jackson Olsen. You thought he was going to be their big guy coming into the year. Peyton Dietrich's been he was a starter last year. He was a returning starter. He's their point guard. And Cole Hovey was a guy who was on the roster last year, but really wasn't a contributor. He's kind of came out of nowhere. And right now I'd say he's their best player of late. And he's just looked the best. He's really athletic, can handle the ball, can shoot a little bit, does a little bit of everything. What are your thoughts on Cole Hovey?
Yeah, I think he is probably the best athlete on that Valdez team. He's, a 2-sport kind of star, and he is just, as you said, Dietrich and Olsen get a lot of the love on the scouting report, but he has the ability to be that, kind of Kyle Tuma for them. If, as they're really young, and over these next 2 years, he's got a chance to kind of take them to that next step, as Olsen and, we got a freshman coming up, Schneider, that are both complement him. But, I think if he continues to put some work in, he's going to be really, really good and contend for a player of the year these next 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. He just has that it factor. You walk on, you can just tell he plays the game the right way. He's always in control, and he's just a really nice player. He'll be a guy to watch in the next 2 years. All right. So I believe you had Cameron Olsen also. He was the last guy in your list. Is there anything you want to mention about him?
No, that's really just because he's been the keel killer, but he usually draws the best, offensive assignment from the other team. He's a great ability to finish around the rim, and he's shown a little bit late to stretch it out to the mid range, and I think that Holsting's got some pieces to, obviously it's a quick turnaround, but they have the ability to go on to compete for a chance at a regional championship. So I think he's going to be a big part of that. If he can, find his groove a little and that team continues to go down, it'll be fun to watch at New Holsting.
Yeah, completely agree. He's played tough twice against Brilliant. I saw he was on Luke Pautz last night, and he had the assignment of Travis Coleman last week when I was in New Holstein to watch that one. All right, some of the other guys on my list, I'll just briefly go through them. Was Jared Valesky, sat out the first half of the year with an injury from Valdez, averaging 8.4, 35% from the three-point line. Just a nice, solid player for them. He was leading them from scoring after about 5 games back, and he's just a solid player. Made 3 triples last night, led the Vikings in scoring. My next guy is Hunter Halepny from Roncalli. I think when you talk about a guy who would benefit, like if he was on another team, or like Roncalli's got so many really good players that he always doesn't get the opportunity. I think if he was on another team, he'd really be a great player in this conference. He's averaging 7 a game, 40% from the three-point line. Does a little bit of everything for the Jets. And then another guy I threw in here, I just threw him in at the end, is Jaden Kippert. Look, he had a 20-point game last night. Good footwork down low. He's nice up and under move, and he can knock down a three. He had 2 triples against Brilliant when I watched him. He had 3 triples last night. Led the Raiders with 20 points last night. He's a player that you look at TR, you always think, oh, you got Daffner, Salta, and Peterson. He's a guy that's kind of in the shadows there, but he does a lot of that dirty work down low, guarding the big, and he has the ability on the offensive end to put up points for TUR. All right, well, that'll conclude our underrated or overlooked category. Next, we're just going to go down and talk about the top 10, top 15 guys. We'll kind of try to piece together our first, second, and third team conference awards right now, and we'll just shoot some ideas off, and we'll go through each player. So right now, he's both number 1 in our board. I don't think we got to spend too much time talking about him. It's Luke Pautz. Let's face it, he's the best player. He's averaging 19.8 a game overall and 20.3 in the conference. Anything to add on Luke Pautz that we don't already know?
I mean, if he can develop a 3-point shot next year, I think he has a chance to have one of the better careers in, the history of the EWC in terms of individual performances. I mean, he is not only is he a threat offensively, but you haven't seen a guy with the ability to, as complete as him. He can defend, he can rebound, and he can really score the basketball.
Yeah, the thing that really stands out to me, people always say, oh, yeah, he's just a bruiser. He gets rebounds, and he's just working harder than everyone else. That's why. But, no, you can really see he really knows the game. He's a really smart player. He's always directing traffic when he has the ball. He's always telling people where to go. He's always talking. He's always moving. Rarely do you see – few have just the ability. He has those skills to do that thing, and just the hardworking mentality that he brings to the Jets. Yep. All right. Next player, I think we both agree on this one too, is Jamison Nikolai from Sheboygan Falls. He's our number 2 player with 22.2 points, leads the conference in in-conference points per game, and he's 19.3 overall points per game.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of got the short end of the stick in terms of, the COVID delays and stuff like that. But I mean, I think he is as close to unanimous player of the year as you can get if he's playing a complete year. I mean, I've seen, last year he didn't really have a great ability to do anything off the dribble. And this year he's shown ability to beat guys off the dribble and really get to the rim and score. And I think that, he's in the conversation as good as he was last year. I think he is, one of the more improved players in terms of, what he did last year, what his game was, and what his game is this year. It's really come in terms of the games I've seen. It's 360.
Yeah, I really agree with that. You did, like, with losing Spielvogel, Tempest, Belling, all those guys they lost last year. You were like, okay, well, as Nikolai, he was just kind of their spot up shooter last year, 45% last year. It's like, okay, well, how is he going to play? Is he just going to be their shooter and kind of do the same thing? Or like, or is he going to take over games? And in the Falls offense, it's kind of hard to just run through one guy and take over games. But really this year, JJ Nikolai has really just impressed me by the shot. The move that really impressed me with him is his ability to consistently knock down that like 12 to 15 foot like runner floater at the free throw line. Like he is cash money when it comes to that. I'd still call him probably the best shooter in the conference.
Oh, hands down.
I mean, he's everything you want in a player. And he really rebounds the ball well too. I think he's at 7 or 8 average rebounds per game, knockdown free throw shooter, just great player, smart, knows the game well, great touch, always in control, and just a player I'd love to have on my team. All right. Next, we'll do Travis Coleman. I mean, you've seen Travis Coleman pretty much every game he's played. Is there anything else we should know about Travis Coleman? I got him at 3rd. I think you might have him a spot lower, but he's at 3rd for me. What do you know about Travis Coleman?
Yeah, he has just such a raw talent ability. He's really, his 3-point shot has come a long way. Last year he was in mid 20s, I believe, maybe mid to high 20s, and this year he's just shot at an unbelievable rate. And I think he's obviously benefited from graduation. He, a lot of what he does is comes off the dribble, and he's allowed to be a little bit more creative off the dribble, and obviously the Kiel offense needed his production early, and I think when they need it, they get it from him. But I mean, he's also benefited, I think, from the emergence of 2 other really, really good scorers in Pierce Arntz and Carson Lepisto. I mean, it's a 3-headed attack, and he spearheads it with what he does and what he brings to the floor. And he's got an ability to take his game to the next level, at Lakeland next year, because he's got a special talent.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch him next year at Lakeland. I think the thing that everyone looks, Travis Coleman, he's always dribbling, making these flashy plays, hitting threes. But I think a lot of people don't really realize, like, he's so good defensively. He's not the guy that's in your face, up in your grill, not letting you go everywhere. He's still good at that, but just the sneakiness, the acrobatic plays he makes. And at times he can be out of control. He can, make some passes that you go like, whoa, where was that going? But more likely than not, he's making that pass. He's getting that steal. And that's really propelled Kiel in a lot of games this year. And that's why they've won a lot of close games. I think just 50-50 balls that he can get and steals and plays that he can make. All right, next. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Okay. So next, I got him at 5 on my list. I think you had him at 3. We'll talk about Jeremy Lorenz. All right. So what do you got on Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I speak for me, and then, Carter got to watch him the other day, and he talked about how he thinks he's the best player in the conference. And I think, he's going to be in that conversation. He's got a chance to win, 2 player of the years over the next 2 years. He just has such unique ability to, to get down low, and he's so efficient. He doesn't miss from, like 12 to the rim. And he is just, he's really impressed me this year. Last year, he was a good piece, but I think this year he's really, taking his game to another level. And it's been really fun to watch in the 2 games he played Kiel. Obviously he needs to add some strength and the 3-point shot, obviously, but he's still young. So all that time to develop. I mean, I think he's got the potential to be a mid-major Division I recruit, Division II recruit. He's just so talented.
He'll go on to play somewhere big. He'll crush a lot of statistical records at Brillion, and he's just once in a decade type player. It's like, wow, that guy. You just know he'll pack some gyms someday. Hopefully, when the COVID protocols are lifted. All right, next. Sorry, who did you have at 5 then in your rankings?
I had Lucas Hallbach.
Okay, sure. I had Lucas Hallbach at 6. So let's talk about Lucas. So first, we kind of touched on him before, but just anything else we want to add?
No, I mean, I just think that, I think he has been kind of he has the only player that kind of hasn't benefited from, the roster turnover from last year. He is, he had to be a role player last year. And if he's surrounded with some pieces, I think that this Chilton team would be really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, you got there's a couple pieces. Blake Beasy, Alex Lemke. There's a couple guys there. I believe Breckheimer's up there in rebounds in the conference. But yeah, just like we talked about before, Lucas Hallbach, for what he has, and he's been able to get some big wins over a Falls team, over a New Holstein team. He's just been a guy that I think has impressed all of us this year. All right, next I want to talk about Hunter Kripling. I have him at number 4. I think he's a little lower on your rankings. But the thing that like stands out to me about Hunter, I don't know. I think he's the best ball handler in the conference. I can't remember the last time somebody's just picked his pocket and stolen a ball from him. Maybe Tyler Bonnet had one in that game, but like he's like I think he's the best ball handler. He's really good at that 8-foot floater. He gets to the rim basically anytime he wants. He had a really good game last night. And I just think sometimes that's just overlooked by how well he handles the ball, and he's a sneaky good defender. Like he's usually on the best guard, and he's always on that guy and just annoying him. And he's a really good defender too. Does a little bit of everything. He's really a senior leader for the really young Lions team. What do you know about Hunter?
Yeah, I think that, he is everywhere in his game has grown. I think he's a much better passer this year. You can tell, that the maturity is there in terms of how he plays. Obviously, he struggled a little bit from 3, but I mean, he is about as automatic as you can get from, as you said, 15 feet. That mid-range game is very strong for him. And he's been a big part of that brilliant team kind of working their way to the top half of the conference this year. And, he's obviously, just a super athlete. And I think that, he's probably underappreciated as well, just because, he does so many little things right that really don't show up on, in a box score.
Yeah, I agree. He's just does a lot of the little things, and he's just an all-around player, just a guy you love having on your team. Night in, night out, he's going to fight for you. All right, next, let's talk about, we had him on last show. Let's talk about Carson Lepisto. You've seen him a lot this year. In the one, I've seen him for 2 back-to-back games. In the second game, he absolutely torched Brillion. He had a really hot stretch of about 4 out of 5 games there where I believe he shot something like 25 for 40 on threes, some insane number like that. What's been the story on Carson this year?
Yeah, he has been, he started, and I think he was, ready to call her quits because he was struggling so much from the 3, and he really he's shooting out of this world right these last kind of 7-8 games. And I'll tell you that, Nikolai is such a good 3-point shooter. And I think that he's 1, but I think that if there's a 2, it's Carson Lepisto. And I think in certain nights it's 1A and 1B between him and Nikolai, because when he gets in that zone, he gets his feet set, he rarely misses. And I think that, obviously he's second in the conference, I think, in made threes, but, he's shown an ability, I think, to defend a little bit more this year. He's kind of taken that, that responsibility to be a better defender, and he's, had some success going off the dribble as well. So I think that, he's kind of completed his game a little bit this year too.
Yeah, I really agree. I think, he's kind of also suffered for just because Kiel's such a good team. They got so many players. So there are going to be games where he just they don't need him to score as much. And let's face it, Kiel has played a lot of teams, especially in non-conference, where like they just go and it's over by halftime.
Yep.
So like there's a lot of games you just don't need him, but like in those big games, he had a huge game at Falls last week, and just a guy that like we said before, if he's on another team, that probably didn't have 3 or 2 other shooters that just dominate the ball. Also, he's looking at almost 20 points per game, and he's in the conversation for a first team all conference, which he's already in now.
Yep.
So, all right. So I have Tyler Bonin after Hallback at 7 up next. And we already talked about Bonin. So we'll just go. I got Pierce Arntz at 9. Where do you have Pierce in your rankings? I think you had him a little lower, but I had him at 9.
Yeah, I think that's justifiable too. He's obviously got a long way to go, but I think right now he is, I think without a doubt, probably the best freshman in the conference, the best freshman that's played in the conference in the past couple of years in terms of his production. He is Um, he's really the true. He's kind of emerged as that true point guard for the Raiders in terms of running the point late in games, getting to the free throw line, doing kind of the dirty work for the Raiders this year. And he's been really, really good. And I think he surprised me in terms of I knew he was good, and he's been really good in terms of his maturity. The way he plays the game is the right way, and it's been really impressive.
Yeah, just the way stuff I know is just the way like he carries himself, like just how he plays the game. He's like really, really like grown up in that aspect. For a freshman, that just really surprised me. If you watch, he knows the game really well. If you watch him, he's struggling of late on his 3-point shot. Not as hot as he was in the beginning of the year. I believe he is maybe just a touch under 30%. Still not horrible for a freshman. And I really can't wait for this Kiel talent that's coming up with, Pierce running the point. Then you got Grant Munns, and you got some other guys. Jack Heckman, he's a solid player for the JV squad. Then there was this other, who's number 52 for the JVs? Do you know he's a shooter?
Landon Bruner.
Landon Bruner, he was a guy, he had 18 in the first half. Kiel JV team, really solid team. And then you got the 8th grade, Cade Voelker, April. There's so many guys, young players in Kiel. They're going to be really fun to watch with Pierce Arntz leading them. All right, next let's talk about 2 more guys here. So let's talk about Cam Daffner, and then we'll go another Kiel guy. We'll go Keenan Munts since we have a Kiel guest in today. So Cam Daffner, what did he do against Kiel? What did you see when you watched him?
I think he's somebody that has been really, really good. I think against everybody but Kiel. I mean, we've done a good job in the 2 games I played him last year and the game that I watched against them this year. They did a really job of containing him, and he is such a good shooter. And I think him as well has struggled because there's not a lot of guys around him. He is uber talented. He's got all the ability in the world to be a really, really good, lead guard for any team in the conference. And, Two Rivers just doesn't have the pieces around him to really, I think, show how good he is. I think that, obviously he's good offensively. Doesn't look, as the whole Two Rivers roster is, it's not really a defensive team, but I mean, offensively, he's as good as it gets in terms of the guards in the conference.
I think if you talk about like the shooters, we talked about Lepisto, we talked about Nikolai. He's right up there with them. I think he was at 50% with a lot of attempts, a good way through the year. You mentioned it's unfortunate too when Brilliant played them. TR had 2 of their 2 down games for the year. He only had 2 field goals against us in 2 games, but nonetheless, I mean, we're not going to judge him on those games. I've seen him go off against us in previous years. I've seen him take over games. Really, really good shooter. He had 3 early triples last night, had a good game last night against Falls. 14.8, 15 points a game he's averaging overall this year. Like you said, I just think TR's a little too inconsistent with the other guys and defensively. So I think you get him on like a skilled team who's like really, he's their guy and the guy who they run their offense through him. I think, you really got a good player, and he is a really good player. All right, so finally, we're just going to talk about Keenan Munns. We didn't talk about him in the underrated and overlooked section, but let's be honest, he's definitely underrated. What do you want to say about his production this year?
I mean, I don't know if there's a guy more important on the Curator roster than Keenan Munns. I mean, he has really come on about that second Vadler's game, about the second Holston game, midway through January. He was just unbelievable. He's a dominant guy in the post who's really improved his footwork and his patience. And he really, I think, completes the Kiel offense. He is somebody to work through on the post. You get a post feed, you work inside out. That helps your shooters, and his ability to rebound, I think, too, is is up there with Poutz's in terms of his effort, his anticipation. He's like second in the state in offensive rebounds. So yeah, he's been unbelievable for Kiel. I don't think they're where they are without him.
Oh yeah, I really have to agree there. You know, we've several times we've talked on this show about Kiel having three guards who just who knows what night, who knows who's going to take over the game what night, but something's been pretty consistent, and there's a reason that team's second in the conference and has so many 17, 18 wins, something like that. Um, it's Keenan Muntz, just because he's so dependable down low. He averages doesn't blow you off the page with his averages. We averages 10 points with in conference play, averages 10 rebounds, 9.8, I believe he's at. So he averages about a double double. And every night he's going to go in there. I remember just watching him at Brilliant. He grabbed 20 rebounds, and I would say he is the reason they won that game, just because so many rebounds. I believe he finished like 16 points. And you know, he's a guy. He doesn't have maybe the Luke Pouts. He's not as skilled or as talented as Luke Pouts. But he's like that player. He's just going to wear you down. He's always going to compete for that loose ball. He's always moving, always fighting for position. And I really agree. His footwork has gotten a lot better. I remember Keenan Muntz of previous years. He kind of get that ball down there, and you could just tell it wasn't as most natural him to put moves on guys, but he's really crafty under the basket this year. That's something I've noticed, and really a really good player. And he's really what's made that Kiel team go. All right, well, it's been really fun talking with you, Connor. This will wrap up our episode 2 of the EWC podcast, and who knows? You might be back on here. You probably will be back on before the end of the year, before we wrap things up for the break until next season. Thanks for coming on today, and wish you the best of luck at St. Norbert.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate everything you do for EWC basketball, Robbie.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
Yeah, see ya.